but great.
It's all set.
Okay, great. So good evening. The time is 7:01, and I'd like to call to order the November 30th, 2021 meeting of the Rules and Procedures Committee. Councillor Moore, Councillor George, Councillor Souza are in attendance, so we have quorum. So as we kick off, I did want to mention a change on the committee. Councillor Souza has decided to step down as chair for personal reasons of the committee. And so I'll be taking over the role of chair as decided by Matt, our town council president. And I did want to just take a moment to sincerely thank Frank for all the work he's done pushing the committee and the town forward, and look forward to his continued involvement as a member of the committee. So thank you, Frank.
Welcome.
All right. So just a few other notes. So it is my hope that we can prioritize the redistricting changes in tonight's meeting and make sure we get that back to the full council for consideration. That was a priority in our previous workshop. And I think that'll be the focus of tonight. This may mean that we push some of the charter discussions to our next meeting, which we will schedule and try to move forward quickly with. And then just the last thing, we did have a few requests to move public comment earlier in the agenda. There are some comments that I think are relevant to our discussion. And so if we could, I would like to maybe entertain a motion to take public comment out of order and have it as the next item on the agenda before we go into the actual ordinance discussion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then do I need to do a roll call vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote. Frank?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So I appreciate it. All right. So then with that, our next agenda item is public comment. I'll open the floor up for public comment. Please state your name and street and limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Yeah, Mr. Evaldi.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Good evening, councilors. I just wanted to say how exciting it is to finally see some of the recommendations that the Charter Review Committee made coming before this group and ultimately before the council. It's actually been 5 months now, so it is nice to see. And what I wanted to offer is, any assistance that I can provide as you guys begin to have discussions on this. Since it's been 5 months, I'm sure most of you probably don't remember the presentation I gave on June 29th. So I would be happy to give it again and give you more background in terms of, how and why some of the recommendations were made. Many of the recommendations, by the way, were driven by citizen input. As you may recall, we did 2 surveys, one of the citizens and one of employees, and then we held 3 public forums. So the feedback that we got, we really took serious and really helped us in making many of the recommendations. So as you begin to discuss them, I think it will be helpful to understand the context of why we did what we did and, go from there. So I've mentioned to Eric that I would be available anytime to help out. So thank you.
Thank you. We have Carlton with the hand up.
Yes, I had submitted to the council some comments after your workshop. I'm not going to repeat any of that, but I do want to know the whys. It's really critical that we understand why certain things are recommended and what the advantages are. One thing I will say, it's not on your agenda tonight, but one of the things that is the number of signatures one has to obtain to run for town council positions is out of line with all other, except maybe one town in the region. Typically, towns have about 50 signatures required for people to run for council. And I think having such a high number is one of the things that inhibits people from actually trying to run because it's not easy to get signatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt. I think that is it. Any other? Nope, just Jason. All right, thank you both. We will move on now to legislation referred. The first one is Ordinance D FY 21-011, General Ordinance, amend Article 2, Section 2-1 of the Town Charter. I did actually prepare a job aid for this. If I could just share my screen. I don't know if I have the right to do that. Debbie, do you know, is it possible to give me sharing access on Zoom?
Yep, I'm just gonna find it here. Let's see where it is.
Perfect.
I thought it was right up here. It's not letting me. Share screen. I don't know why it's not letting me do it. Usually it's right up.
Okay. If we can't, I could probably try to read it then.
Yeah, it's not coming up with share screen.
Can you?
Oh, hold on. Here it is.
Okay.
Make co-host. You should be able to do it.
Perfect. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Can everyone see a Word document?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So maybe just to orient you to this, on the left is the current language, on the right is the proposed change language, and down below would be the language in the ordinance. There are some changes that I'm proposing there too. I just wanted to sort of talk through my understanding based on our workshop, and then I can make a motion to amend if there's alignment. So I believe coming out of our workshop on redistricting, we said we wanted to try to stay as close to the original language as we could and just sort of update the numbers. And so I attempted to do that. So there should be a town council consisting of 9 members. 3 of these members will be district councilors nominated by the 3 districts, and 6 of the members will be known as councilors at large. And that same information was moved down into the ordinance to reflect the change. The other thing that's a little different from the original proposed ordinance and what you're seeing here is I did try to align, I guess this is called maybe the preamble with the other charter change that we're looking to send through to the state just to keep them consistent, but we could, this isn't required. I just tried to do a little housekeeping on that, but you'll see the same language appear later on one of the other charter changes. So I believe this accurately captures what we had discussed at council, and I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to use this language.
Okay, I will make the motion to use this language.
Great, thank you.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, we have a second for discussion.
All right, so you got to give me a second to.
Sure, yep, I can pause. Let me actually make it a little bit bigger. It'd be kind of hard to see on this screen. There we go.
So what you're proposing is, scroll up to the top. So the proposed language you have on the top, you're looking to amend it to read as you just highlighted below?
Correct, yeah, so this essentially would change this existing language in the charter to this language.
So that, all right, so that's the language. The language in the proposed is the same as what you've highlighted below this right here. Is that the same thing?
It should be, yeah, it is.
Okay.
And then the only difference in the actual wording of the ordinance is I tried to sync it up with the way we were wording the other ordinance. So that one essentially has a delete entirely and replace statement, and then some justification for the change.
Is Jason on?
Yeah, I added, Eric, that language is what I added on the, I think you probably got that from the most recent of the proposed charter changes, right?
Correct. Yes.
7-4. So
yeah.
I actually added that. That's great. That's exactly the language I would have put in there. for the preamble. And I think that now syncs up with kind of the vetted charter change that I had kind of worked with. I think it was Councillor Chase, and was it you, Councillor George? I'm trying to think. There was.
I think it was might have been.
Was it you, Eric?
I think it was might have been Rushton and Chase.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I think this now syncs up with that, which is great. That's really our goal here. Yep.
So, Jason, it just a couple.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be nitpicky whatsoever.
Yeah.
Town council, should that be capitalized as a defined term?
I mean, we did it in the preamble, so it probably makes sense to do it in the composition, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think we're not, singling out town councilors and then saying their names. We're calling it kind of like an entity within itself. So probably,
okay.
Probably not a bad idea.
And Eric, this is nitpicking from a former life. So reading loan documents. And then is district defined term? Or
so
no?
Where are you looking? Because I can only see part of it.
I'm looking at composition, right?
Yep.
Small a. So you go down
3 districts.
3 districts into which the town is divided. Is that a defined term? I'm just asking.
Yes, it will be a defined term when you look at section 7-4 that I worked with Fred and Matt on. So
okay.
I had worked with them on 7-4, which it was a little bit of the cart before the horse. But what I think Eric's done and did a nice job here doing is he took that 7-4 and he incorporated the notions there to match up with what you'll see in 7-4. And if I'm not mistaken, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't looked at 7-4 in a few weeks, but I think we did define the districts pretty clearly. And I also recommended in the language that we actually append the precinct map to the charter. Because I think it'd be useful for voters to have that as part of the charter, right? They can, they look through their charter if it's online and say, oh, there's my road, there's my, I think it's a nice thing for them to have. So
yeah,
I
agree.
It's defined. Yeah.
Yeah. So Eric, another friendly amendment, just capitalize D in districts.
Yep.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. I think it looks good to me.
Frank, anything from your side?
Oh, I agree with Sean.
Okay. So then I would, I guess, entertain a motion to recommend as amended.
Well, we have to vote on the amendment and then vote to recommend as amended.
Got it. Okay.
So I will make I don't know if we've done it yet. I'll make a motion to amend as outlined.
Second it.
Thank you. And then roll call vote.
Yep.
Souza?
Yes.
George?
Yep.
And I am a yes. Great.
And now I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. Long day today. To recommend, to support the, you know what I'm trying to say here.
Recommend as amended?
Recommended as amended, yes.
Yeah, perfect.
And I'll second that.
Yeah, great, thank you. Roll call vote. Souza?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
And I more is a yes. Perfect, so motion passes unanimously. We'll update it as amended and send it back. All right, the next item on the agenda is Ordinance D FY21 012, General Ordinance Admin Code Change Part 2, Chapter 1, Article 2, Section 2.
Eric, before you move on to that one,
yeah,
is there a way you can happen to have the charter on you? I'm gonna try to look it up on a alternative device because I want to be looking at your screen. I'm just wondering if and I'm going off the top of my head because I don't have the charter in front of me, but 2-1 is B or C necessary to be amended? I know the original proposal was only to amend A, of 2-1. I'm just wondering, I just want to make sure that while we have it here, that B and C don't need to be amended in any fashion.
Yeah, I think I looked at that. Let me see.
Okay. Then the initial recommendation was only to amend A, and that might have been intentional, but I just want to make sure while we have it in committee, we take a look at that.
Yes, I think actually that may not be true. Let me see. The next one has an A and a B where we only proposed A, but we need to add B. So I think this first one, let me see. Section 2.1.
I'm going to try to pull it up on my computer. I'm just going to minimize this screen so still can see you guys.
This actually does have, let me see. Hold on, let me stop sharing just to take a peek.
Okay.
I do have the charter here.
I'm going to look right now. So 2.1, eligibility. Any voter shall be eligible to hold the office councilor at large. A district councilor must be a voter and resident of the district. Okay, that's fine. If a district councilor or councilor at large moves out of the town during the term for which elected such office shall immediately, that's fine. If a district councilor moves from the district from which elected, that's fine. It's less than 6 months, that's fine. Term of office of district councilors and councilors at large shall be staggered terms of 3 years beginning on the second Monday following election and continuing until the, which is fine so long as we have a transition clause that I had kind of discussed with you guys, I think at our last meeting or at the workshop. You might want to amend 2.1C to include, and we can work on, some proposed language to bring back before the full council, to say something like the term of office of district councilors and councilors at large shall be staggered years, terms of 3 years beginning on this. And again, I don't know if you guys want to have it on the second Monday or you want to change that. That might be something you want to look at. The other thing we should probably add is a sentence to 2.1C saying staggered terms shall begin subsequent to those terms set forth in section, and I think the transition section we were talking about is 10-9 we were going to do. So that just might be something to work on. We can obviously, you don't have to deal with it right this second, but it might be good to work on, have an amendment in your pocket for full council and maybe kind of work through that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we actually have FY 22-006 that talks about 21C, changing it from, beginning on the second Monday to the next business day.
Yep.
When we get to that point, maybe we also include what you just proposed in that, since it's covering that section.
Yeah, and I think, because we don't have currently in front of you all a transition section, right? We workshopped it, but we haven't had enough time for anyone to have a first reading of those transitions that you all had kind of discussed and kind of come to an agreement on. So I think at the next council meeting, what you want to do is for the transition time, you want to have that ready for first reading. And that may even be something that doesn't have to come back to you all if it's something that we kind of agree, on at council level. You might want to just keep it up there and then vote it, with all these other changes, because I think you guys workshopped that pretty well, right? Like there was a general consensus on the terms. I think it was more a matter of what precincts are going to be 2 years, what precincts are going to be a year, that kind of thing. So I just want you to be cognizant of that. So this is really good for the change to 2-1A, but I think 2-1C has to be amended a little bit just to reflect that those staggered 3-year terms happen at a certain time period, right?
Right.
There's
Yep.
a date certain that those will start. So just something to add, right? You might
Yep.
want to amend that at council level.
Yeah. And that amendment is in the charter, the new staggered transition.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna, I mean, that's what we talked about doing. We talked about doing, so the old charter had this like transition section at the end when we were transitioning over from the selectmen to the current form of government. And so we haven't done away with that yet. Most of that section can be done away with, but for now, while it still exists, we can add a section of transition, which will be the transition of these the new precincts and districts, right? So
okay.
just something to make sure we get on the agenda so everything syncs up right.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that topic for tonight? Okay, so I took some notes. I think we have some work to do on that. All right, let me share this again. This one is a little bigger. So the next one is the FY21-012. And this is the admin code change. The ordinance that was in front of us just covered this first section, A, and it was a change essentially in the numbers. I did notice that section B, similar to the last discussion, also referenced precincts, and we needed to update that to be in sync. So this comparison shows section B as well. I added that in. And then I also have some proposed language, but maybe if I step through first A, this talks about 9 members from each precinct and then 2 at large. So we had to change that. Now it says there's 9 members of the town council, 1 elected from each of the 3 districts into which the town is divided. That language is borrowed from the charter change, and 6 elected at large. So 3 districts and 6 at large.
Yeah, friendly amendment to that is just the district should be capitalized.
Yep. Perfect. All right. And then this next one, the current language talks about a member from the town council who moves from one precinct to another during the term shall cease to be a member of the town council. I don't think the intent is to do this at the precinct level, since someone could stay in the same district and move precincts. But this one, I think I probably need some advice from Frank, either you or Sean. Was the original intent of this to essentially say if a district councilor moves out of their district, they forfeit their seat on the town council? Or is this anybody who's on the council and moves forfeits their seat?
The district has to live within the district. The at-large is the whole town. Okay, so if you're at large and you move from one street to another in town, you're still in town. Okay, but if you're in a district and you move out of that district, then it's just like today. If you're in there, like for example, I could give you when Dr. Perry moved from his home to another home out of his precinct, he was no longer a member of the council. So it's only those in the district upon moving out of the district. It has to be not just specify moving, it must specify clear that they're moving out of the district that they were elected to represent.
Got it. That's helpful. And then I think maybe a legal question then, maybe this for Jason. The language that's in there right now doesn't specify the district councilor part of that move. So it says a member of the town council who moves from one precinct to another during the term shall cease to be a member of the town council.
Yep.
And so we potentially have the opportunity to fix that if that's broken.
So let me, let me, this is kind of the funky part with the admin code, right? And the admin code really is intended for kind of the running administration of the town government and not necessarily the charter. So what I would do is I would have this section of the admin code mirror exactly what you have in the charter. And it shouldn't in any way be distinct or different from it, because if it is, you're actually indirectly making a charter change through an ordinance, which isn't valid anyway. So, because this is just an ordinance, right? And really, I think the intent when the admin code was created was to, for this section at least, was just to cut and paste. I really think that was what was going on. So what I would say is have it just match exactly what you guys amend section 2 to look like, and have article 2 section 2 just match exact. And obviously this doesn't even have to go to the legislature. This is just going to be an ordinance. So and in fact, this probably, until it gets approved by the legislature, this probably should sit at council level and wait to get voted on until we know the charter changes are allowed by the legislature. So this is probably the least critical of all the things you guys have to do. And I would just keep it simple, have it mirror word for word what everyone agrees to in the charter change, then have it sit at council level until we get the charter changes back, and then put it on the agenda that next day and vote it. So the admin code gets changed after the charter change is made.
Got it. Okay. So given that, I had proposed an amendment here to use the new language, but I think what we're saying is let's correct this. Would it still make sense then, Jason, to send it back to the town council with just the original clause amended? And then when it's in the council, we amend again?
No, you know what I'd honestly, yeah, that's exact. I would hold it here. So what I would do is I'd send back the charter changes that we know are going to have to go to the legislature. I'd hold this here. We'll wait to get the charter changes back from the legislature, and then you vote this back to the council that next meeting, and you vote this right then and there. This won't be integral to anything because it's the charter change that matters and not this. So this is just an administrative issue, hence the administrative code, right? So I wouldn't trouble yourself too much with this one.
Okay. So I think given that, would it make sense then to entertain a motion to postpone to our next meeting? Between now and then we can make the edits.
Well, can we just table this until it comes back from the state? Because it may not be back at our next meeting. If we're relying on something coming back from the state.
The only reason I wouldn't table it is because it has the unintended consequence of being more difficult to come back. So if you just continue it to a date certain, you can keep doing that over and over again.
Yeah. I'll motion to move this to our a date certain for discussion.
Great. I'll second. Or Frank seconds. Okay. Roll call vote then. Councilor George.
Yes.
Councilor Souza.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So unanimous. We will postpone that to a date certain. All right. The other change on here that's related to the redistricting is the last one in the agenda. We could certainly work through the other ones and then get to it, but I'm wondering if it might make sense to take that one out of order.
I'll make a motion to take it out of order.
Okay. Great. Roll call vote. Councilor Souza?
Yes.
Councilor George?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Excellent. All right. So we're going to take 0 and 5 out of order. That's the next one. I'm going to share it here. I don't think this is in our packets, but it was included in the November 2nd Town Council agenda.
Yeah. I don't have a copy in the packet. Okay.
But I do have the language here unedited if you'd like to read it. Essentially, these clauses that we pulled into the first one are the same. They came from this. And then they're looking for this change to remove the existing district section and replace it with precincts and districts. in this language. Maybe I'll pause to give everyone time to read that.
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
Great. And it is replacing this original language in red, which is fine. It's a full delete and replace. Okay.
So my only other suggestion on this one, so I actually did a lot of the drafting of this one, but nothing to this one itself, but to section 1-9. I'm not sure, and I'll leave it within, your purview. This is another kind of like the transitional clause that you probably want to bring forward as a first reading. You may want to have added to 1-9, which is the definition section of the charter, a definition of precinct and a definition of districts, which is included in here, right? But if you want to be super thorough and have it be kind of neat and tidy, it might not be a bad idea to add those definitions in 1-9, but totally up to you. I don't think you have to. I think this makes it very clear, but that might be something you might want to think about.
And we could do that as an amendment, or that would be
I would do it separately. So I would propose at the next council meeting for first reading, I'd propose a definition section, which will act in concert with this. I don't think that would need to get referred back to you guys. It could stay at council level for vote at the meeting thereafter. And then that transition section, section 10, same thing. I'd probably keep them both at council level to get them voted as quickly as possible. But those are kind of two things that you might want to think about doing just to keep it nice and organized under the charter.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So if we're comfortable with this, I would entertain a motion to recommend as is.
So move.
So move. Second.
Great. All right. Thank you. Roll call vote. Councillor Souza.
Yes.
Councillor George.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we will recommend. Perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to stop sharing. The rest of the items we can start talking through, but I think we probably need a little more homework on these as well. So maybe I'd be curious before I dive into it, does it make sense in this meeting to start actually walking through each of these? Or do we think we want to do some homework and tackle these in the next session?
Experience showed that when we discuss them, like we did with this last group, we get the consensus of the council and the attorney, and we get the language to where it's workable.
Great.
So maybe that's what we should do again.
Okay. Perfect. Then
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I probably did a poor job during the workshop. Just expressing my concerns, and it's funny because my major concern is with the, ordinance that looks like the easiest to clean up, typographical and punctuation errors. But again, from past history, and Jason alluded to the fact too, that could take us the most work because potential unintended consequences of, eliminating a comma, adding a comma. Something that we see as a benign typographical error actually making a potential substantial change. That one in itself could take a long time. The other ones I think will take time, but personally, I don't think they're going to take as much as us going through and cleaning up the typographical stuff. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
because there's a lot.
I agree, and I think the advice last time is we needed to have an attachment with this that actually called out, delete this, replace with that, add this, for all of those changes for each change. So, so for this one, I have seen examples of how other towns have managed something similar, and perhaps I could bring a few of those examples to our next meeting, and we could think about a way to maybe tackle this one. Borrowing a little bit of what others have done before us, if that makes sense.
Won't be the first time.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe with that, does it make sense to then postpone to a date certain, or?
Yeah, just
Okay.
continue it to a date certain, whatever your next meeting will be.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to postpone to date certain.
I'll second it.
Great, thank you. Roll call vote. Councillor George,
Yes.
Councillor Souza,
Yes.
and I am a yes.
Now, Eric, what I'd like to do, if we can, is actually let's set the next meeting date.
Yeah, completely agree. Should we do that at the end as we go through these, and then we can take a look at calendars?
So are we? I was on the assumption we're going to do date certain for everything that's remaining, or is
Yeah.
Okay. So
I would like to do dates. Yeah, if we could do that.
Right. So I thought that's what the motion was. That's what I was supporting of the rest date certain to our next meeting, and then let's schedule our next meeting.
I
Perfect.
think that makes sense because when you were workshopping, I know there was pretty extensive discussion. I think a lot of it was between Eric and I about the way some of these maybe should be redrafted. And then I think it makes sense if we have some drafts of these, we can then kind of work through it together, right? That
Yeah.
probably makes the most sense.
Great. Okay.
Yes.
So that's good. So then we have a motion to postpone to a date certain, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, 09, 10, and 11. Let's see, and that passed. And so now we pick a date certain. Could we look at some calendars? Do you have access to calendars in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I do too. So maybe
Next Tuesday, we have our council meeting. Wednesday, I get my booster. I'll probably be okay. And then Thursday, I'm wide open.
Thursday, I'm wide open too. Maybe, so Thursday the 9th, is that right?
Yep.
Frank,
Does that work for you?
Good for me.
Perfect. So
7 o'clock, yep, Thursday the 9th.
Thursday the 9th, right?
Yes. Great. Okay. We'll work to get that scheduled and out on calendars, and we'll put together the agenda. And then between now and then, we'll collect some examples of how to move this forward.
And then the only other thing I would add is make sure at least one of you sponsors maybe the definition of 1-9, and then maybe one of the other of you sponsors that transition as kind of laid out. It was a little bit of a math problem, but as laid out in that workshop. I think that'd be good to get on for first reading on next Tuesday so we can keep it moving.
Great. I'm happy to sponsor either of those. I can do the definitions if somebody else wants to do the other one. Or I can do both.
Totally up to you.
The
You're the
other one
chairman.
would be
You make the call.
The other one should be fairly easy too, because I think there might have been some language already in some packet, right, that we discussed. Maybe Councillor Wood had proposed. at least that's something you guys can work from.
Okay. Why don't I draft that up then, and that way we can just keep it consistent with the other ones. Present that to town council. Great. Okay. So we moved public comment. So I think we've already covered that. I think the only thing left is to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Councilor George?
Yes.
Councilor Souza?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right, thanks everybody.
All right.
Evening
Thanks, everyone.
all.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.